due to COVID-19. So anybody watching on YouTube, you can note that our agenda packet for tonight is on the Van Buren Township website homepage. To join this Zoom meeting, you would click the link and you can participate with comments by raising your hand, using the chat function, or dialing *9. The agenda tonight is fairly light. There's a typical procedure at the beginning with introduction and minutes. There are no public hearing items. There is a new business item, which is a tree removal permit application for 39670 E-Course Road. And on that item, we will have a brief presentation from the applicant, followed by a presentation by staff, and then discussion by the Planning Commission. So that said, I'll turn this over to the chair to formally start the meeting.
Thanks, Director Powers. Good evening. Welcome to the Charter Township of Van Buren Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, February 10th, 2021. We'll have a roll call first, please.
Joan Franzoy.
Here.
Jeff Jar.
Here.
Brian Cullen. Brian Kelly.
Here.
Medina Atchison.
Here.
Sherry Budd.
Here.
Carol Thompson.
Here. Thank you. We have an agenda before us. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support. Commissioner Jar, and it's a roll call vote, please.
Medina Atchison.
Yes.
Sherry Budd.
Yes.
Brian Kelly.
Yes.
Jeff Jar.
Yes.
Joan Franzoy.
Yes.
Carol Thompson.
Yes. Very good. We also have minutes from the meeting of January 27th of 2021. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved to approve the minutes.
Thanks, Commissioner Budd. Support.
Support.
Commissioner Franzoy, is that?
Yes.
Great. And a roll call vote, please.
Brian Kelly.
Yes.
Medina Atchison.
Yes.
Sherry Budd.
Yes.
Jeff Jar.
Yes.
Joan Franzoy.
Yes.
Carol Thompson.
Yes. All right, we'll move right to our first agenda item, new business. It is a tree removal permit, as Director Power had noted. The location is 39670 E-Course Road. The applicant, James Hammond of Waste Management of Michigan, Inc., seeks a permit for tree removal on approximately 113 acres of property. Again, address 39670 E-Course Road, located on the north side of E-Course Road between I-275 and Hannon Road. And let's see, Director Power, do you have an introduction, or are we going right to the applicant's presentation?
I think your summary of the case covered the introduction quite well. We'll go over our summary, and I guess the one thing I'd add is this is a 187 acre parcel at the northeast corner of E-Course Road and I-275 there. So that just gives you a little bit of site orientation. But we'll let the applicant go ahead and speak about their project. I will share an image of their surveyed tree removal plan, and I'll let him, Mr. Heyman, go ahead and speak, and then I will give an overview of our report, which was written in conjunction with myself and Vidya Krishnan. So we'll let Mr. Heyman go ahead and speak about the project. I'll share my screen.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Dan. Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can, Mr. Heyman. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. We really appreciate the time and the effort that's put into this. This started back in really 2014 when we were dealing with the council and also dealing with Van Buren Township on the expansion of Woodland Meadows landfill. And this is the first phase, really preparing the area for construction. The just over 100 acres of tree clearing is just to get us set up for the first phase of construction. It's really the eastern half of the former golf course property. The actual landfill cells that would be constructed would be 33 and a half acres. Additional area would be needed to prepare for stormwater, channels, basins, and new haul roads and stockpile areas for us to consume. So even though we're only utilizing the 33.5 acres, we need the additional space for the tree clearing to stockpile additional materials on, for retention basins and for haul roads for construction to actually take place. This new cell is expected to be in operation in 2022 and will provide just over a year of airspace. So if you can see, it's a little hard to see. I sent Dan a different notation there with the hashtags there where you can see where we're going to clear. We propose to clear that area this year in the first phase. And because of the excess soil that is there for us to remediate and actually not remediate, but exhume, we need to go further south and put a stockpile, which is just going to be located just north of the existing clubhouse. So there'll be an existing stockpile that's there in the excess of around 1 million yards of soil that will be stockpiled there for future use and or for us to haul off on. And the rest of the tree clearing permits will become, phased approaches, I guess I would say, as the expansion goes on. So this is just the first phase for us to get started in the expansion area, which is something that's gone on for multiple years. And we appreciate the support from Van Buren Township. And with that, I guess I'd open it up to any questions that anyone may have.
That's great. Thanks, Mr. Heyman. Appreciate you letting us know how you're progressing. I think we'll go first to the recommendations from staff, and then we'll see what questions or comments there are. Director Power, is it you first or Ms. Krishnan?
Sure, I can go ahead and I'll give a summary of our report that we wrote together, and Ms. Krishnan can also state any comments as well. But I'll go ahead and do the summary of the report for this case. So as you heard, this is a request by Mr. Heyman of Waste Management of Michigan Incorporated, seeking approval for tree clearing. The Section 8.106 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance regulates woodlands and includes relevant requirements for tree removal permits. And per Section 8.106 H2, the reviewing authority for tree removal permits is the Planning Commission. And so it's within that framework that you're looking at this case tonight. Typically, what you see is that there's tree removal permits as part of a broader development application, but the zoning ordinance has the mechanism to allow you to review tree removal permits in and of themselves as well. So that's what you're doing tonight. The Planning and Economic Development Department has reviewed with consulting staff this application. We've estimated roughly 453 individual trees and 11 roughly acres of contiguous woodland on the site will be removed as part of this project. What I would like to do now is talk first about the survey requirements and the standards for a waiver from a detailed survey. And then I'll go into some of the standards for approval. The tree survey requirements come from 8.106H of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance. And under 8.106H3, there are criteria for waivers from a full tree survey. And I'd like to go over those criteria. First, that there's a field investigation of the site that reviews and verifies the accuracy of the information provided by the applicant. That standard has been met. There's a location of the proposed activity being flagged, marked, or otherwise indicated by the applicant on the site at the time of the field investigation. This has also been provided on clearly the tree removal information has been provided on clear scaled imagery. The applicant or an authorized representative of the applicant should be present during a field investigation which the applicant has committed to meeting with staff on site as requested. And then there's a finding that the proposed activity in the area of the site for which a waiver is sought meets the standards of this ordinance. And I will go through those standards now. So we looked at this closely and reviewed it to meet the standards for the waiver. So we've been given good materials to understand the scope of this project. So now we look at the impact of the project and the standards for approval. So I'll go through those standards. The standards I'm referring to are in section 8106I of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance. The first speaks to whether the applicant has considered and pursued all development options available under the zoning ordinance in order to preserve woodlands and trees. In this case, with this being such a unique site, with the logical and planned expansion of development that's part of this request, the design lends itself to trees being strategically planted as buffers from adjacent land uses, but not necessarily as contiguous woodland inside of the site. And so we find that that standard has been met. And in fact, per an agreement with the township, there will be a 25-foot wide landscaped buffer maintained along the frontage with I-275, and a 50-foot wide landscaped buffer along the entire E-course road frontage. The second criterion is that the integrity of woodland areas shall be maintained to the greatest extent reasonably possible, regardless of whether woodlands cross property lines. In this case, we have to acknowledge that the site is adjacent to a 245-acre landfill with the potential to expand. And so there's really no feasible justification for maintaining trees on this lot in its current location. So the expansion of the landfill will involve extensive grading and as part of the use of the site, and the location of the trees are not likely to survive that process. The third criterion is where proposed activity consists of land clearing. It shall be limited to designated street rights of way, drainage and utility easements, building and driveway envelopes, and other such areas necessary for site improvements, considering the development options available under the zoning ordinance. We believe this development will require grading not broadly on the entire site, which is inherent to the use, and therefore the entire site is deemed as being part of the development area for site improvements. The fourth standard here is that where the proposed activity involves residential development, residential structures shall be designed to use the natural features of the site. Well, there will be no residential structures within this project. And then the next standard, number 5, is that the removal of trees for which a tree removal permit is required shall be limited to instances that include when necessary for the location of a structure or site improvements, and when no reasonable alternative exists. And as noted in comment 2, any proposed use of the site will use the entire site. One of the other factors is when necessary, as determined by the township, to provide reasonable drainage upon the site, and when no reasonable alternative drainage is available without the removal of trees. In this case, we acknowledge that any use of the site will be required to comply with applicable standards of Wayne County and the township engineer. And then finally, when the prospective owner of residential dwellings has requested the builder in writing to remove trees in order to facilitate specific improvements. And there is no homeowner interaction here with the use of this property. And then the final is the burden of satisfying all of the standards is upon the applicant. So based on our review of this proposed tree removal application, we recommend that the Planning Commission approve the request for a tree removal permit at the above site, at the mentioned site, subject to a few conditions, which I'll go over again here, that the applicant will meet on site if requested by staff to validate the location of tree clusters prior to the issuance of the tree permit, which the applicant has agreed to do. That there will be a 25-foot wide landscape buffer maintained along I-275, and that there will be a 50-foot wide landscaped buffer maintained along the site's e-course road frontage. That green belts will be planted in accordance with the township landscaping requirements. That a tree removal permit fee will be verified by staff and provided with the application, and that is also in progress. And that applicable policies for payment into a tree fund per section 8106J3 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance must be followed. The word applicable here is very important. What we found in going over this with the applicant is that there is a agreement that supersedes this application that provides all the necessary tree fund payment and then some. So there's actually coverage for that by a previous agreement. So that last condition really does not apply, and I would strike that from our report. With that, we recommend conditional approval of this application, and I'm sure Vidya or I would be glad to answer any questions. And Vidya, I'm not sure if you'd like to add anything to that.
I'm good at this time, Dan. I think you summarized the project pretty well. The only thing I wanted to add was the site's aerial. If I may just share this image, maybe it. This would be the area we're looking at. You get a larger scope of how it is rather than the small. So 275 would be over here, E-course would be over here, Hannon would be over here. And the applicant would be creating additional green belt along here and a green belt along this whole area. The one clarification I did want is any landscaping anticipated along the site's Hannon Road frontage? Is that something that
Yes.
could be clarified? Would you please just go ahead and.
Yes, actually, in the Fifth Amendment, the last amendment to our host fee agreement, we agreed to a landscaping plan that will provide a minimum of $350,000 toward landscaping. So when we get to that point of our landscaping deployment and plan, it has to be approved by Van Buren Township. So yes, we have allocated funds aside to address the landscaping.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure because our review letter specifically mentions the green belt along 275 and E-course. Some of these areas already have trees. So if within your tree placement budget, if there are existing trees, those gaps can be filled in here and additional trees can be put along Hannon, which is sparsely landscaped.
Yes.
So I'm glad
Yes.
maybe it could be added to our letter director power that the landscape plan at the time of installation will be reviewed by the township to ensure adequate green belts along all site frontages on public streets.
You're absolutely correct. Yep. We will submit our landscaping plan to the township, and then from there we can negotiate, not negotiate, but agree on a plan that works for both parties. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ms. Christian, and thank you, Mr. Heyman. We appreciate you helping to clarify that for us. So we are at questions or comments from the Planning Commission. Anyone?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Jar?
in staff's letter, points 2 and 3, there's a condition about the 25-foot wide landscaping buffer and the 50-foot wide landscape buffer. Is the intent of that condition to ensure that trees are not removed along those frontages, or is the intent that the condition that those trees shall be replaced?
Director,
Does that make sense?
it does
I'll
make
take
sense.
a
Director
first
Power,
go
give
with
a
that.
clarification for us on that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So I think ideally there's going to be an emphasis on preservation rather than removal and replacement. And I think Christian had showed some areas where there is existing tree cover. We'd encourage those areas to be maintained as part of the green belt. The new plantings would be primarily where there's gaps, but of course we'll look at the plans in more detail. There may be some tree cover there that's not perhaps not as desirable as new landscaping too. So we'll take a closer look at that.
And the landscaping will be in a separate agenda item, I assume. This is just for the granting or not of the removal request, right?
There will be a review of the landscaping by the township. And with Director Best here, there may be some clarification on the degree to which the site and landscaping plan come together before the planning commission versus some of these items are covered through the agreement in terms of the site plan, but the landscaping staff will look at administratively.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioner Jar? Great. Other questions or comments, Commission? Anyone in the audience? Sounds like we have what we need. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Kelly,
I move to grant the applicant Waste Management Michigan, Inc. Tree removal permit for the site located at 39670 Ecorse Road, based on the analysis and subject to the conditions detailed in the Van Buren Planning Report dated February 4th, 2021, with the removal of the requirement that was discussed as it has been previously resolved, and addressing the landscaping review at a later time to ensure proper coverage and other issues.
great, thank you. Motion and support. Is there support?
Support, Madam Chair. Commissioner Jar.
Commissioner Jar, thank you. And there'll be a roll call vote, please.
Sherry Budd, Medina Atchison,
Yes.
Brian Kelly,
Yes.
Brian Cullen,
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Joan Franzoy,
Yes.
Carol Thompson.
Yes, thank you. So, Mr. Heyman, we've got your tree removal permit taken care of, and we look forward to hearing about your continued progress. And thank you very much to staff for a thorough review. Next on tonight's agenda is general discussion and updates. Director Power, do you have anything to share with us?
I will share that the next agenda is still in formation, so we think there may be a meeting in 2 weeks, but we'll let you know if that changes. Or we can assume there's a meeting in 2 weeks, but we'll let you know if there's not. I will also update the Planning Commission that there was a Board of Zoning Appeals meeting last night, for which we asked you to provide some comments. So we appreciate the comments we received voluntarily. You didn't have to send them, but we appreciate those who sent some in. There were 2 different cases on the agenda, one of which was a what I would call a typical type of variance request, which is a dimensional variance request for leniency on the lot coverage maximum for a M1 light industrial zone site on Haggerty Road. The applicant wanted to install a canopy addition to an existing building, and that was the Neapco site. That was postponed with the direction to get some feedback from the Planning Commission on potential zoning ordinance review and language that would address that lot coverage issue. And so that case was postponed. The BZA didn't think they had the information that they needed to make a final decision without taking this to the Planning Commission first. So you will hear more about that project. We don't know exactly when. The other was the Clover Communities Senior Housing Project had a interpretation that they requested an appeal from the BZA for, which was that balconies and communal areas in independent senior housing developments cannot count toward the usable floor area requirement for the units in senior housing. On the balconies point, that was denied by the BZA. On the usable floor area point, the BZA ended up agreeing with an interpretation that our ordinance essentially doesn't say that there needs to be square footage of usable floor area inside of each unit, a minimum usable floor area inside of each unit. It just needs to be that there's enough usable floor area essentially in the building at large that's for the benefit of the residents to meet those usable floor area standards. So if it sounds a little bit confusing, there's a little bit of complexity to it. So that's why on that review also, they've given some direction to go back to the Planning Commission and provide some clarification in the ordinance on what we're looking for with usable floor area and senior housing. But for purposes of that project, that allows that project to continue with the assumption that their coffee room, seating areas, areas that are for the exclusive use of tenants, even if they're not in units, can be counted toward the building's overall usable floor area that's distributed to the units. So that on that point, there was a concurrence from the BZA, but both of those cases will come back to the Planning Commission in terms of the zoning ordinance clarifications that the BZA is looking for. So you'll have a chance to look at that more in depth when that comes back up.
Great. Anything else?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Director Best. Nice to see you.
nice to see you too. Last night was also the Recreation Committee's meeting where they discussed the potential of a community center in Van Buren Township. It was an opportunity for the public to make comment about what they'd like to see in a rec center, as well as hear about the potential plans that have already been thrown about by our feasibility study designers. We had 35 different people attend virtually, and we had over 45 different comments from residents talking and trustees and others who wanted to get their voices heard on the community center, potential for a community center in Van Buren Township. The Planning Commission is invited to be participants at the next meeting as attendees to throw their 2 cents in the ring, as well as anyone who's watching tonight on YouTube or on Zoom, to provide their comments as well about what they'd like to see in a community center, and to get a chance to see some of the potential concepts and renderings that are out there, and to comment on perhaps some uses that we haven't even thought of that might be beneficial, or to speak in opposition for some of the things. I don't know how you guys feel about the community center, but I can tell you that staff and the Recreation Committee are looking for all comments. So please mark your calendar for the next meeting, which will be the first Tuesday in March 9th at 5:30. You'll be able to go online to the Van Buren Township website and log in. And I hope to get a chance to see you there at that meeting as well. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the extra invitation. Appreciate it.
For the
Anyone-
chair, could I
Yes.
inquire, Director Best, is the meeting from last night posted online yet?
It should be on the Van Buren Township YouTube channel.
Great. I was in the BZA meeting.
We
It's a
haven't
long-
figured out how to virtually be in 2 places at one time.
Technology is great.
Yeah,
Good.
Vinny and I were stuck in that BZA meeting too. Just kidding.
Through the chair. Carol,
Mr. Bud, yes.
Matt, could you send out an invitation to all of us so it'll be on our calendars? Will you send out an invitation to the
Yes,
planning commission members?
I would absolutely be happy to do that.
Okay.
Thank you, moderator.
Good job, everyone.
No problem.
Anything else for general discussion?
Yeah, I don't know if you caught that, but the moderator just put the link up in the chat window there, so you can catch the meeting in the chat window.
Okay. If there's nothing else from anyone, general discussion, is there a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Thanks, Mr. Jar. Support?
Support from Sherry.
Support Commissioner Bud. And all in favor, please say aye.
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 And we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.